All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Prop Live. This show we do every week where we take your prop and costume making questions and answer them the best that we can. Hopefully help you out. Today is going to be a little bit different. We don't have a guest. You just got me today, but we have some new things that we're trying out. So instead of having a guest, you have one another. So to get started, kick things off. Actually, my water's right over here. All right. If you guys are watching, and even if you're not watching live, you can still go check this out if you're watching the archived version. If you go over to punishedprops.com/live, you'll see we have a live chat page now. And this will evolve over time. Right now, the video for this live stream is embedded there. We'll probably update that every week. Down below that is a widget. This is for the IRC channel we have for our live chat, which is pretty cool. We're going with this as opposed to the live chat for YouTube because that sucks. It's really, really slow. It doesn't refresh very frequently. So we've got this IRC chat. It's going to be really cool. The main focus with the IRC chat is for you guys to be able to communicate with one another, because previously we just had the Q&A app, so you guys asked me questions, but you couldn't really respond to other people's questions. So we still do that. We're still doing the Q&A app. If you're watching live, you can go to the Google Plus event page and submit your questions there, and that's how we'll take the majority of our questions. But also, we can have a little bit more of a back and forth between me and you guys and you other guys and one another in the chat. You can see in the video down here, I've got sort of like a live streaming thing. Uncle Tass is asking if we can start pummeling me with questions. Yes, you can send them through the Q&A app, though. I won't be able to like constantly keep an eye on the chat, so don't submit questions there. I'm going to miss them. That's more for you guys. And again, this will evolve over time, how we handle this. We may change how we take questions live going forward, but this is the first step towards a bigger thing. If you do go, once again, if you go to punishedprops.com/live, you'll be able to see where the chat is. Below, there's the IRC information. And so if you want to use your own IRC client, you can just go there and log in. There's also some chat room guidelines here with more information about how to like set up your own nickname and everything. For the chat, what is IRC? How do I register my nickname? And then some basic guidelines and what is and isn't acceptable in the chat. So go ahead and go take a look at that. Eventually, we'll probably get some people to help moderate the chat. But for now, oh, and I just got disconnected. Hooray! So I'm still learning about IRC. Apparently, the web interface is not as stable as I would hope. But we'll see. Like I said, still an evolving process. But hopefully, you guys start chatting with one another there, and it's going to be awesome. And the reason why, one of the reasons why we can do that is because you guys have been supporting us on Patreon. We have 43 patrons now. You guys are awesome. You're helping us improve the show. We could take the time this week. Well, Brittany could take the time this week to run off and start getting the IRC thing all set up for the chat. Again, for you guys, so that you can chat with one another during the live show. This will also be really, really handy when I'm doing like live. What would you call it? Live, like when I'm working in the shop, doing a live stream from the shop, which again, I want to do more of that. Because then it's less of a Q&A thing, more of just a chat back and forth where you guys and I just have a conversation. Just logging back into the chat now because I totally got disconnected. And I don't have my password, so it'll just take a second. While we're getting rolling here, there aren't any questions in the event page yet in the Q&A app. So go ahead and start submitting those, and we'll get to answering those really soon. And paste and start. And error connecting, excessive clones. I guess I have to wait a second. So I'm going to wait a second before I jump back in the chat. I have to get an IRC client on the computer. All right. Growing pains, you guys. Growing pains. So what else? Did I have anything else for this? Let's hide that for now. That's about it. Like I said, that chat will be running 24/7. You can go in there whenever you want and see what. If you just want to go there and talk about prop making, whenever the inspiration hits you, you can run it and do that. All right. Let me see if I can log in. No, I can't. All right. Well, I guess I'm just going to start taking questions. Of course, I really wish I could see what was in the chat, but no. The first question comes from Sam, and he says, is it possible to make a mold from an EVA prop that's been coated in Mod Podge and sanded smooth? If so, would it be best to also prime and apply a gloss clear coat? Thanks. We've gotten this question a handful of times before. You can mold nearly anything in silicone. Just be aware that if you leave any fine texture on there, the silicone will grab onto it and may tear when it comes out. It may take parts of the master with it. I have heard of people sealing their foam really well and molding it. It's a thing that people do. But personally, if I'm going to mold something, then I want to make the master out of something that's that I can get a really fine level of detail on. And foam doesn't offer that unless you seal it a lot with a very thick, rigid coat of something like epoxy or urethane resin. I would rather just build it from like wood or plastic or something more rigid and durable, something I have a high level of control on the texture. And I would, sculpt the pieces with, when I say sculpt, but I use like a bandsaw or a scroll saw or a spindle sander or a number of power tools to get something down to a refined level before I'm going to spend the money on all that silicone for it. As much as I love foam, and I do really love foam, if you compare the level of detail on a gun that I made out of foam versus a gun that I've made out of wood and then molded and sculpted or molded and cast, the one that's molded and cast is much higher level of detail, much more control on the texture. So that's my recommendation. Sure, you can use foam to make a mold. I don't recommend it. Ding. Now I'm going to try and log back into the chat, and it won't let me. All right. Well, let's take another question. Uncle Tass wants to know, hey, Bill, what's your weapon of choice for making bullet holes in armor, a Dremel or a soldering iron? I would probably use a Dremel, but I personally have a lot more experience using a Dremel to like modify foam. I have a whole bunch of different Dremel bits, like the package when you see on the wall like Harbor Freight that's like there's 80 different Dremel bits. I got one of those, and I have a ton of different types of Dremel bits to do different types of texture when you're sanding and grinding bits and pieces in your foam. So I personally would rather use a Dremel. I have started using a hot knife, like a hobby knife or a soldering iron, to do more detail in foam, and I've gotten pretty good at it. But it's just a matter of practice. I have a lot more practice with the Dremel, so that's what I would use. Thank you, Uncle Tess. All right, this next question comes from Ayla. She says, hey, Bill, I've been a fan of yours for a while. I wanted to tell you that you've been a great influence to me. Ding. Glad to hear it, Ayla. I'm going to Fan Expo in September as Red Hood from DC Comics and made the helmet out of Pepakura. I was going to cut a section in order to fit it on the head, talking about the helmet. What would be the best way to do that with magnets? So if you have a helmet like an Iron Man helmet, anything that's pretty fitting to your head, usually they have a thing that comes down, like the back hugs the back of your skull. And that means you can't get it off. Like if it's on there, it's the hole in the bottom is smaller than the circumference of your chin and the back of your head. So something's got to give. Something has to come off. Either the lower jaw piece, so you can take the helmet off, or what I would prefer is probably this back piece. So, for example, my brother did an Iron Man helmet exactly like that. There's a seam along the back of it. He just cut it there and then down the sides. And then he put magnets in there so that the back piece pops off and you get the helmet off. You'd be surprised if you get rare earth magnets or neodymium magnets. They are surprisingly strong, like really, really strong. You can get them really small. Put 3 or 4 of them in there, and it'll hold a helmet piece on pretty well. I learned a technique from my buddy Steven Meisner, who was on the show last week. What he likes to do is build the helmet first. So Ayla says she's doing it from Pepakura. So build the entire helmet first, and then along the seam that you would cut it almost the entire way, but leave a little bit so that the piece is still in place. And then on the back side, you can glue your magnets in flat. And then along one side, there will be a cut edge. Along one side of that cut edge, you wax it with something to keep glue from sticking to it. And then you glue down a strip of, let's say, styrene plastic that bridges the gap that you cut there. And put magnets on that as well. So it's a really flat, flush lip that you add around it, and then it'll pop off of the one side that you didn't put, that you put the wax on. That way, and then you would cut the little pieces that were holding it in place. The whole thing pops out, and you have a ridge on there that tucks underneath it that makes it lay perfectly flush because it got glued down just like that before you cut it away. Hopefully my verbal, I don't have an example to show you, but hopefully my verbal description of that will at least get you most of the way there. That was really cool. I saw Steven did that with the arm on his Winter Soldier arm that he did recently. So if you go to look up SoloRoboto Industries on Facebook, you'll see that, and it's pretty cool. And it's something I definitely want to do the next time I do a helmet that requires something like that. All right, cool. Thank you, Ayla. Again, you guys, we had this chat thing. It's awesome, and I totally can't log in. I don't know why. You know what? I'm just going to do this so I can log in. Bill. I'm just going to log in as Bill. Let's see what happens. Excessive clones. I don't know what that means. All right. Let's reload the page. Thank you guys for sticking around for all this experimentation that we're doing. Next week I will have an IRC client, I think. Yeah, it still won't let me log in. All right. Let's take another question. This one is from a regular Foos Row Dave. He says, "Hey, Bill, I signed up for your workshop at Construct." What's Construct, you ask? Construct. I'm grabbing the website. And there it is. Boop. There it is. Construct. This is a convention I'm going to, run by my friend Alyssa Smith from Propped Up Creations. This one's in New York City, May 30th through 31st. I'm going to be there along with my shopmate Will, who's just over there. I'm pointing, you can't see me. There it is. He's just over there. Putting on a bunch of panels, and I'm going to be running a workshop about doing foam weapons, which will be really cool. Construct, you guys. Anyway, Foos Row Dave says he's going to be there, which is going to be awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there, Dave. He says he's bringing his Dremel and heat gun. I was wondering what kind of bits I should bring. Also, I'm incredibly excited and slightly geeking out. I'm pretty sure we're going to be supplied with heat guns and Dremels. I sent a list of materials to Alyssa to get us all set up. I think just a normal sanding bit is really all we need for what we'll be doing for that workshop. We're not going to get too crazy, but bring anything you want to play with, anything you want to experiment with. We'll be following a design that I have, but that doesn't mean you can't get crazy and do your own thing. So bring whatever you want to play with. Again, like I said before, go on Amazon. We'll put a link to this in the show notes, I'm sure, to a huge pack of all the fun bits. Or Harbor Freight has them, or most hardware stores have them. The Dremel takes an 1/8" shank, so any bit that's an 1/8" shank will fit in there. And yeah, there you go. Get all your bits and play. Get your bits and play. Title of this episode. Okay, this next question here comes from Brian. He says he's been asked to build the Hammer of Nauru. This is from World of Warcraft. Nauru. Grab a picture of that. So this is a giant hammer from World of Warcraft. There it is. This guy right here. So it's a big purple. I believe this was from Burning Crusade, if my memory serves right. Big old hammer there with a big purple gem on it. It's awesome. It's really cool. I never got it, unfortunately, when I was playing World of Warcraft back in the day. Brian wants to know how he might make that giant gem. The main challenge there is going to be weight. Anything that big is going to be really heavy. And trying to make it into a transparent gem will be really, really tricky. Now, you could, probably shouldn't, but you could mold it and cast it out of a transparent resin that's been tinted purple. That would look amazing. Like, that would be the best way to make it look right. But you would end up with this. Let's see, how big is that? That's easily like 2 feet wide. This massive chunk of solid resin. If you could find a way to make that hollow, that would be awesome. The challenge is most transparent resins take a long time to cure, so slush casting them isn't really an option. Other than that, you could, I believe Brian mentioned something like transparent warbler. That could be a solution. You could vacuum form something. You'd have seams you'd have to deal with. Trying to glue them together and not see all the glue in a transparent piece is going to be really challenging. That's not to say it couldn't be done. You're just going to have to, I don't know, mess around with it. I would do some small scale tests before you commit to making that giant thing. The other way you can do it, though, is, let's see here. You could not make it transparent. You could just build something large and paint it purple and make it look kind of iridescent and shiny and stuff. Just don't make it transparent. I would probably do that myself, because then you can build it out of something like polystyrene foam, this stuff right here. Yeah. This is just insulation foam. It's really, really lightweight. You can make your whole gem out of this and then coat it in something like Epsilon. So it's got a hard shell around it that you could sand to a nice finish and paint it up to look the way you want. It just won't be transparent, but it'll be really light. And when you're carrying something like that around all day at a convention, you definitely want it to be as lightweight as possible. And I still can't log into the chat. All right. Boop, boop, boop. Cool. Yeah, both me and Brittany are having trouble logging in, which is a bummer. We'll figure out the chat thing later on. All right. So yeah, there you go, Brian. There's some ideas for you with your giant hammer. Good luck, because that's a challenging build right there. Here we go. Next question comes from Dustin. says, has Britt made any progress on her Vex costume? Anything you can show us? Nothing I can show you right now. But yeah, Britt's been working on that quite a bit. A lot of design stuff. She's planning. We're waiting on some software stuff. We're trying, again, the live streaming thing. Still kind of hammering some details out. We want to be able to. Brittany's been doing a lot of 3D modeling, and she wants to be able to, excuse me, to live stream that. But getting the software set up for that is a little bit tricky. Once we get that all set up, then Brittany's planning on live streaming her talking about a lot of the 3D stuff she's been doing. She's designing the Vex pieces in 3D. She'll probably do some Pepakura or something like Pepakura, where the Pepakura files get printed out and then cut out in foam, stuff like that we've done before. But yeah, she's definitely making progress. Hopefully within the next week, we will be able to live stream some of that. So stay tuned. Hey, someone flushed the toilet. All right. Thank you, Dustin. By the way, in the Q&A app here, Florence is saying, you sure you don't have some extra tabs open? Talking about the IRC thing. That's not the problem. I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. But both Brittany and I both can't log into the chat right now. So I hope you guys are having fun in there while we are wallowing in our own pity. Other than that, there aren't any more questions in the Q&A app. So if you guys have some questions, please dump them over there. And I'll keep answering them. Until then, we've got another question. This one's coming in from Kip. He said, I think Kip's a he. I have a question for you, Bill. I'm making several prop weapons for the character Celebrimbor in the Shadow of Mordor video game, using EVA foam with internal fiberglass rod to add some rigidity to them. This is going to be my first time using Epsilon to seal the foam. Do I apply coats in crisscrossing layers like when I use Mod Podge for better sanding results? Usually I'll do like 2 coats of Epsilon at a time and then sand it, because it recommends that you do mix up a batch, apply it to your foam piece, give it an hour, mix up another batch, apply a second piece or a second layer. That's what the bottle recommends. I would then let that cure for a good 8 hours, like overnight, and then sand it and then apply another couple layers if you need it. You're not going to get brush strokes the same way you might with Mod Podge. I will say that when you're using the Epsilon, if it starts to kick a little bit, the viscosity goes way up on it, and then you're going to start getting brush strokes. But so long as you work in small batches in a wide, shallow container with your Epsilon, it won't kick quite as fast, and you can apply it pretty haphazardly without having to worry about leaving too many brush strokes. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, is there any more? Oh, for better sanding results. I mean, it doesn't. I think the best practice there is going to be like apply a couple layers, let it cure, then sand it, and then see where it needs more work, and then apply a couple more layers. If you're going to add like 6 layers, it'll take you 3 days, but you'll get into a cycle like that where everything kind of. Hey, Britt's giving me a thing here. I'm gonna try out. Boop. Hey, that's a different thing. Everybody, hold on to your butts. That's not even close to the right thing. And there it goes. Password. Connect. All right, cool. Looks like I'm in some kind of chatty thing. All right, so give me 1 second here. I'm going to add the screen thing here like that. And hey, look, there's a line floating on my face. And there's our chat. All right, once it gets up, we should be getting back to the chat thing. All right. Thank you again, you guys, for being so patient with us tripping through setting up this chat thing, but it's going to be awesome. All right, here we go. Another question. This one's from It's Kiwi. Working on a large MDF piece on a tight deadline. Don't plan on sleeping tonight. Woo! I was up till 3 a.m. last night doing something similar. Do you prefer working all night and maybe being a little sloppy, or getting rest but losing hours? I know that I have a threshold that once I hit that threshold, my work takes a nosedive. The quality just goes right down. Usually, I can get a temporary boost in quality by chugging a couple cups of coffee. But I would say I can go a day or two where I work like 15 hours in a row, like 15-hour days. But after that, my quality tends to plummet if I pull any more all-nighters. So a lot of times I usually err on the side of getting a solid chunk of sleep, waking up, and when you're fresh in the morning, and again, cracking a couple cups of coffee, that's when I get my best work done. I know that the first 6 hours in my workday are the best hours of my workday. So if there's anything, like if I have to do just repetitive stuff, I'll do that later in the day, stuff I don't have to think about. But if it's stuff like important problem-solving stuff or highly detailed work, I do that right away in the morning. Now, sometimes this means like I don't have a day job, so I can just do that all day. Sometimes this would mean getting up before work, like a couple hours early, and cranking out that difficult piece of your project. Because when you get home after a long day at your job, that's when the quality of your work may be the worst, and especially if that's your starting point, and then you stay up all night trying to get that project done. You don't have to be well rested for work. You just do your prompt making before then, then go into work exhausted. But at least your prompts got done. That's what I think. I believe there's been studies done too when like video game companies will go through cycles where they call crunch time, where they're working 15-hour days, 12 or 7 days a week. Some studies showed that something like 55 hours in a week, anything over that, there's a drastic plummet in work quality. When you hear about people working like 80-hour weeks to get a project done, sometimes it's like, we got work done, but it wasn't good work. The quality tends to plummet. All right. Well, you know what? I can crunch this down. Did that work? Nope. Never mind. I'm pretty bad at this. Nope. All right. I'll stop messing with that. All right. Here we go. This one's from Heather. When making armor out of foam, what do you put on the inside facing your skin and cloth? I've seen anything from nothing to gluing cloth and was wondering what your preference is. For most of what I've done, I haven't put anything behind the armor. I think going forward, I will start to glue cloth in there. If you watch some of the videos that Evil Ted has done, he even recommends barging strips of cloth along the seams on the inside, because he says that sweat can eat away at the adhesives holding your armor together. Now, I've never had a set of armor fall off of me or had the seams fall apart, but apparently that is a concern. Another concern is for my Titan armor, I spent a lot of money to get a really awesome undersuit made, and it's a Lycra, and that Lycra can pull and pill a bit if it gets caught on stuff. And under my armor, where the foam or the edges of the foam that were sealed with epoxy resin, it pulled and pilled at the really expensive undersuit I had, which was a bummer. So if I had backed that in some nice soft cloth, that may have prevented that. The good news is it's all just stuff that's under my armor. You're not going to see it, but it did make me cry a little bit. Yeah, I would also say too, if you're going to wear the armor over bare skin, I would definitely back it in something nice and soft and comfortable, like a soft cloth or something like that. Thank you, Heather, for your question. I'm in the chat now. This is cool. Britt sent me a link. It appears to be working. You can see I've got this thing down here where FC is talking about using a specific client. That's cool. Britt says, thanks for being part of the beta experience. Hooray! Can I promote Britt? That's what I do. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. All right, this next question comes from Bryce. How would you recommend shaping EVA foam for a full face helmet if you don't have a mold of your head? I would say get a mold of anyone's head, something close. I have some really cheap foam heads that I got at the at a costuming store. They're just for like holding wigs on there. They're a little small. They're much smaller than my head, but you could wrap it in something. You could wrap it in like paper to bulk it out a bit, make it a little bit bigger. Then you'll have something that's roughly head shaped. That's roughly the right size. We also have a video on making life casting. It's so long as you have a lot of friends that can help you. It's not too painful, and it's not that expensive either. We used alginate and plaster bandages and hydrocal. Those are all pretty cheap materials. You can also buy like high-end busts, like sculpting busts. I think Monster Makers has those. Let's go to Monster Maker and find out. Monster. They make Monster Clay. Monster Makers. Hooray. Bust maybe. Let's find out. Ooh, that's kind of cool. This is a similar thing. So monstermakers.com. Basic latex mask making kit. It comes with head armature. That's cool. That's what I need to look up. Head armature. Yeah, check these out. Deluxe full Ed head. Deluxe full Elena head. I guess it's like a male and female. So this is a head. It's $65. That's pretty good for a really good sculptor head thing. So you can even just buy one of these guys, and it tells you the head circumference. It's got all the stuff right there. We'll have a link to this in the show notes, so you can go check that out. Either way, having a head to work from, any head, will set you miles ahead, miles ahead to get some really cool helmet and mask templating done. So check that out. Go get a head. All right. Thank you, Bryce. Let's see. Lon says he wrapped his wig head in bubble wrap to get it close in his head size. That's a really good idea. Cool. Yeah, Lady Longshanks, my wife, says, for live casting, make sure they're trusted friends. That's right. Anytime you're entombing your head or any other body part in rigid materials, make sure you've got a friend that you trust. All right, this next one comes from Uncle Tess. One more question, Bill. Do you ever revisit costumes or props you've made that you're not entirely happy with? Decide to fix and upgrade it? I got a list of projects of almost everything I've built I want to rebuild or redo part of it. My Dragon Age Hawk costume, I would love to redo that again. I am really happy with how it turned out, but it's one of the first costumes I built, and I've learned so much since then that I'm like, I love that costume. I love the look of it. I like the battle mage, the big spear and spikety shoulder thing. I would just love a chance to get a crack at that one again. And then just about every prop I've made, there's aspects of it that I would love to redo and rebuild. Yeah. He also says, so how would you go about doing it without scrapping everything and starting over? I would probably scrap everything and start over. But that's just, I mean, I love building stuff from scratch. So if I'm going to redo something, I may build it from the ground up. If there's something that I already have a mold of, so for example, I built Mayroon's razor a long time ago. I may, if I was going to rebuild that one, that's not really on my list, but if I was going to rebuild that one, I would probably cast a copy of it from the old mold that I've got and then rework that and then remold it. So yeah, lots of options. And I always want to remake stuff. I never really what's the saying that they say about movies is that they're never released, they escape. Something like that. They just have to get to a point when you call them done. Cool. Next question here comes from Foodtro Dave. He says, what's the best way to figure out how much silicone to use in an irregular shaped mold? What I'm making has 5 sides, length, width, and height. It gets a little complicated at that point. It does. I will tell you, if you get into the world of matrix molding, which I'm going to be doing here pretty soon, you cover your piece in clay and you sculpt the clay to represent the silicone. And the handy thing about that is, once you've made the mold jacket around that, you pop it off, you've got that clay, you can scoop it all off and use water displacement to figure out the volume of clay that you used, and that's how much silicone you use, which is really handy. A lot of other times, like the molds I just made for the Tomb Raider bow are kind of like S-curve shaped. So I basically, there were 2 pieces. I clayed them both up, and I measured length and width roughly and kind of guessed on the volume to get it at least close. But I had 2 molds ready for clay side by side. I went and mixed up a whole lot of silicone, and I guessed high. I guessed that I would probably need not that much for one side of it. I poured the silicone in one side. Lo and behold, I had silicone left over, so I poured the remainder on the other side, and then I kind of judged how much was left. So if I used, let's say, 500 milliliters, and it was enough to fill 1 mold, and the mold next to it's about the same size, and that one got filled halfway, then I know I would need roughly 250 more milliliters. It's handy, especially handy when you're making molds, to have more than one thing ready to go at a time. So there you go. Or at the very least, have something that maybe not for the project you're currently working on, but have something clayed up ready to go in case you mix extra silicone. Because once you mix it together, there's no unboiling that egg, so to speak. Always have more than one thing ready to go for molding. And if you don't mix enough silicone, not a problem. Just mix a little more afterwards. All right. Woo! Look at that chat go. I'm so glad to see that you guys are in there. We've got, let's see, besides me and Britt, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 people in the chat right now, checking it out, talking back and forth. They've been talking about doing more head molding type stuff, which is pretty awesome. So please go use that and check it out and get to know one another. It's a little social thing going on. Let's see. This next question comes from Second Nature FX. It says, hey, Bill, you mentioned that slush casting a transparent resin wouldn't work because it takes a while to dry. Do you think it would work if it was done in a rotocasting machine? It might. I don't know. You really got to start looking at cure times. Smooth On. If you go to Smooth On's website, they do lots and lots of molding and casting materials. Let's see, transparent. Is it clear? Maybe it's clear. Clear, crystal clear, optically clear liquid plastic. This might be it. So like crystal clear. The cure time. Oh, this must be not for home use. Oh my goodness. This is probably a polyester resin. I'm guessing. That may or may not be it. But the cure times on these, it'll tell you right here. 16 hours, 90 minutes, 48 hours, 5 days. My goodness. 4 hours. I guess and again, I've never tried this. But if you do have a rotocasting machine and you could put a resin in there and let it go for an hour and a half, then maybe. I've never tried that before, but it might work. But just remember, even if it's as low as 90 minutes, that's per layer. So if you need 5 layers, that's going to be quite a long time for your rotocasting. smooth cast. Let me see. I'm just curious. I haven't done very much transparent casting, so I'm looking right now. I don't really see anything. I don't know. Harrison Cricks would be the guy to ask about that. He's done a lot of clear casting. But like, for example, Harrison recently did a bunch of stuff on a bunch of trophies. They were solid, big, solid, transparent hunks of plastic, really heavy. I wouldn't go swinging them around. All right. Let's see here. Yes. All right. Next question comes from Ice Pick. All right. What he says, what's the worst Harbor Freight tool that completely failed to work as advertised? I got the first drill press I bought. I got from there, and the drill kind of went in sort of a swirly, didn't go spin straight down. So, and I just kind of dealt with it. I just kind of assumed that every time I drilled a hole with something, the hole is going to be a little bit bigger than the actual bit. But it was a really cheap drill press. I had it for a while. I gave it away, gave it to a friend when I was done with that. And now I have a really nice Delta one, like a really big one. That was pretty crappy. Most of the stuff they have will generally work okay, but durability is an issue. They just won't last. But for the most part, I think that drill press is probably the worst thing I bought from Harbor Freight. Did not work as advertised. No, it did not. It did not spin in a straight line. All right. Lon. Speaking of the transparent stuff, Lon is saying 3D print a shell in transparent plastic. You could probably do something similar to that. You would need depending on the piece, you would need a big something. So, for example, that big hammerhead we were talking about, you could use a resin printer. I was just looking at the Ember printer that Autodesk sells, which is really cool. It's really small. The print area is tiny. You wouldn't be able to build a big hammer. The goal would be, if it's transparent, to make a huge transparent thing with no seams on it. So you'd need a huge print bed for that. But that would be one way to do it. Who knows? Maybe in a few years you'll have like a print bed like this big, and you can just print fully finished transparent pieces. That'd be amazing. All right. Bryce wants to know, what do you do when you don't feel motivated to work on a costume you have a deadline for? It's usually not the case. Like, motivation is usually not the thing that makes me want to stop working. Usually it's frustration. And what I'll do is, like, if you're working on a costume, there are many, many different pieces, right? And I'll say anything that's just grunt work, that's like if I have to punch a bunch of rivets or something, if I have to just cast a bunch of pieces, anything that's just busy work, it needs to get done, but it doesn't require a lot of thought. I'll reserve that stuff for when I'm getting really frustrated about working on a certain piece that's proving to be kind of difficult. And I'll say, let's take a break from that. Let's go over here and just punch all these eyelets or whatever I have to do. Then I can pop some music on, grab a cup of coffee, and just get a bunch of work done. That way I'm still being productive, but I can just turn my brain off and not worry about it. Generally, with every project I work on, there is either another project that I can go work on for a while to give myself a break from the current one, or there's a different part of the project that's just busy work that I can go do. No matter what, I just always make sure there's a thing I can be working on so that I continue to be productive, even if I'm getting really frustrated. And when it comes to motivation for something on a deadline, for me, a deadline is usually enough of a motivation to make sure that I just plain get it done. I'm very deadline motivated. All right. Another one here from Uncle Tass. Any idea on an alternative to glow specs glasses that you can actually see through? You know what? Brittany actually got some of these glasses, glow specs. Let me just run these up here. So the company that runs this is kind of weird. Like the customer service stuff was kind of wacky, but we eventually got the glasses. And the idea is that they're these glass, like they sell them to like ravers and stuff. They don't look like that. Like this picture is not, that is not what you get in the mail. There we go. Thanks for the wonderful high-res images, guys. It doesn't look like that when it glows. Actually, Brittany's probably got hers around somewhere. Essentially, the lens is made out of a material. I think it's like something that's sandwiched together, but it's got a texture in it, and then it's rimmed with light so that when the light goes, it reflects on that texture. And maybe like the way the texture is angled, more of the light shows outward than inward towards your eyes. I will say that when you have those things on, your eyesight is diminished significantly, and the glow only really shows up in like a dark room. It's not like super illuminating. If you want to do something similar to that, again, most of the time, if you're making something that covers your eyes and you want it to glow, your eyesight is going to be not as useful as it is without those in front of it. But you could do something similar to that by layering. So let's say you have a colored lens in your mask, layering some sort of mesh behind it and then shining LEDs into it. Or etching like a texture into the plastic. So if you use acrylic discs to cover your eyes, you could etch a plastic or etch like a grid pattern into that, and then shine LEDs into the side of it, and it'll make it look like the eyes are glowing. Again, you're not going to be able to see very well because all that light goes out and in. So that's my glow spec story. Good luck with those, with making your eyes glow. Uncle Tass. Okay. Boop. This one here is coming from Andrew. This is an interesting one. How much money do you think you spend on cosplay, conventions, and costumes? It seems like that's the sort of thing that I should keep track of, but I usually don't. I can say I did keep track of my Titan costume build. That was about 150 hours of work with all the materials included. Came to about $600. But that was kind of, there were a couple of things that drove the cost up on that. I got a custom printed undersuit. That was like 150 bucks. I bought brand new motorcycle boots for that. That was another 100 bucks. I didn't use floor mats. I ordered a couple different rolls of L200 foam that ended up being around $100 worth of materials. And then there were lots of little bits and pieces here and there. I bought a bunch of rolls of nylon webbing. So I needed a little bit, and I bought like 100 yards of it. So I stocked up on a lot of the materials. Like I keep a lot of, you can see the rolls like right there. So yeah, that 600 for me is a lot to spend on a costume, but I stocked up on a lot of other materials. I have like 100 buckles back there now, so I don't need to buy those again. I have brand new boots, and I have a really cool undersuit. But as far as like conventions and costumes are concerned, like other costumes, I haven't really kept track. Usually I'll probably keep it around 100 bucks for a costume, especially if it's all floor mats. I can get those really cheap. But for conventions, a lot of the ones I'm doing lately, I've been a guest at, so they pay for the travel. So those ones are right break even. But the big ones, so like Dragon Con, our big one, we save up for that. Like my wife and I, that's our big thing we do every year. It's across the country, so flights are a little more expensive. The hotels are not cheap at Dragon Con. So we probably spend $2 or $3 grand on Dragon Con to go out there. But like I said, we save up all year. That's our big expense every year. I see a lot of people who go to like all the conventions, and I don't know how you do it. It can get really expensive. Thank you, Andrew, for your question. Let's see here. This is actually great. There's a good conversation going on in the chat right now. People are talking about doing more transparent stuff. There's some really fun ideas. Talking about 3D printing pieces and then welding, like chemically welding them together with acetone. Acetone will eat away at like ABS plastic, so it melts it a little bit, and then you can glue the pieces together. But it's not really gluing; it's melting the material. Then you smush it together, and then when it unmelts, it becomes one, called acetone welding. Cool. Let's copy this for a quick thing. Another eyeball thing. Let's see here. Dune Punk LED eye prosthetic. Let's see what this is all about. This link came from Lon. And this guy is building some sort of thing. Welding some sort of thing. Okay, so this is like a little wire thing with some lights that go over his eyes. And he looks really creepy. And I'm going to guess that he can't see a thing. Yeah. That is really, really cool. It looks really cool on camera. I'm willing to bet that he can't see a thing. That's neat, though. It is cool to see lots of people trying those things out. Cool. All right, here we go. We got another question from Andrew. See, any ideas on creating the Dark Knight Returns Batman armor? I'm trying to create a suit, and some tips would be helpful. Dark Knight Returns. Can't remember which one that is. Oh, is this the cartoon, the animated one? Not really. I don't really know which one that is. Dark Knight Returns. The film? Is it from the film? Could be. Let's see here. This is the one with Officer Murphy. Did the voice. See here. So I'm going to guess it's this guy right here. I mean, that looks pretty cloth heavy. You know, a lot of sewing. I think it's really neat. But you're going to have to bust out that sewing machine. Dark Knight Returns. If you mean, I'm still not quite sure which armor you're talking about. But there is. I'll tell you. Here's what I'll do. If there is a website, there it is. This is where you want to go. Brotherhood of the Bat is a forum devoted to Batman costuming. You have to log in to read the stuff. It's cool. That's where you want to go. Brotherhood of the Bat. So just look up Brotherhood of the Bat. We'll put a link in the show notes as well. Brotherhood of the Bat is the place to go to talk about Batman costuming. So those guys will be your guys for your Batman in costumes. Batman and Robin, and probably a lot of the villains there as well. Brotherhood of the Bat. There you go. Check it out. Let's see. There's more going on in the chat. This is awesome, you guys. People are talking a lot about doing the glowing eyes, which is really cool. Uncle Tass is saying that Citadel has a model glue that works really well for gluing 3D printed parts together. That's super cool. Let's see here. Oh, and also Andrew's commenting the armored version in where he fights Batman. Is that the Superman? If it's Superman versus Batman, the new movie that's coming out, that armor that Batman has looks pretty cool. See if I can find an image of that, where it's like in the rain and he's like, "You will bleed blood, Batman." Blah. I can't find it. That armor looks really cool. It's like his this one right here. There we go. Web browser, there it is. Yeah, that armor right there, that is pretty cool. And of course, I would say, hey, you could totally make that out of foam. It's very geometric, a lot of kind of hard edges. You could have a lot of fun building something like that out of foam. So that's pretty cool. And then you've got glowing eyes. So I'm going to guess they CG'd those in there, and Ben Affleck can probably only barely see out of that thing. But there you go. I would make that out of foam. Yay. Or you could also sculpt it and then mold and cast it out of something more rigid like a urethane resin. I imagine there's probably actually let's see. How would I look that up? The RPF.com. I bet there's someone on the RPF who is already building that armor. I'm gonna go check it out. All right, so I went to the RPF, and what do we call it? Bat Fleck armor. I think that's what I would call it. No. Let's see if we do Batman versus armor. Batman versus Superman armor. Someone on the RPF has got to have started something like this. Let's see here. Dawn of Justice. Is that what they're calling it? This is just a discussion on it. Yeah. Anyway, someone has got to have already started on that. Cool. We got one more link here. Let's see what this is. Oh, is this a different one? Oh, this is another one where Superman's fighting Batman. Fuzro Dave just sent me this link. Another Batman versus Superman with a giant armor thing. That looks pretty awesome. Oh, that particular animated Batman movie thing was awesome. You should definitely go check that out. But yeah, again, a lot of that armor could be done with EVA foam really well. That's gonna stick with that as my answer. Make it out of foam. Yeah, and with that, we're just about done here. We got just a couple minutes left here. I think I'll go ahead and reiterate once again. If you go to punishedprops.com/live. Hey, Batman, what's going on, bro? Boop. That's where we've got the information about the chat. And again, we will be there. We'll be checking it out when we're live, when we're doing more live streaming stuff. But also, it's just going to be there. It's going to live on punishedprops.com/live forever. The RC channel is constantly running. So if anyone ever wants to dip in there and see what people are up to, feel free to use it. And again, we were able to do this. We're able to get this all set up because you guys, because you wonderful, generous people are supporting the show through Patreon, which is awesome. Patreon.com/punishedprops. Again, the show will always be free to watch and participate in. But if you want to help out, help improve the experience, then you totally can through Patreon. So thank you again, you guys, for making this show so awesome. And thank you for bringing your questions today and putting up with me not knowing what I'm doing when it comes to IRC chat. Thank you guys in the chat for playing along. Looks like you guys are being super chatty. Oh, it looks like Britt says she tore apart her glow specs to see how they were made. It's a texture that's glued onto the glasses like a small honeycomb pattern. Yep. But that's that. So we're going to end it here. And we'll be back again next week with more prop and costume making goodness. So until then, why don't you guys... Oh, and also tomorrow, by the way, a new video tomorrow. I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek how I built this guy right here. Ta-da! This is the bow from the new Tomb Raider game. I built this for the folks over at Crystal Dynamics. We're making that game. I've got a full build video of this guy that will be live tomorrow. That's Friday. So until then, get out there and make something. Bye, you guys.